Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today I want to celebrate the greatness of Eric Burdon, because not only has he put out consistently good music over the years, but he was a really good singer in an era where, and I know this might shock a lot of people, not a lot of truly talented singers emerged in his genre. So this was an era of the early 60s and mid 60s when the so-called beat bands out of England were taking over the world. In the US, they called it the British invasion. In Europe, it was a big scene because these bands from England were coming over and they were doing a kind of rock and roll style that sounded very new because it was essentially up tempo and very boppy, if you will, in terms of the beat, versions of traditional older black American blues music. And as these bands evolved, many of them began to write their own music in their own way. The Kinks developed a very philosophical, observational, and melancholic, quintessentially English singer-songwriter style within the context of rock and roll. The Who created their own sort of version of sort of stadium hard rock and operatic rock. The Rolling Stones developed their own unique songwriting style after really doing mainly covers for their first few albums. We all know what happened with the Beatles and their interesting trajectory. But the Animals were unique because they were a band that really appreciated the blues, dare I say, at a deeper level than some of these other beat bands, as they were called at the time, these rock and roll bands. And one of the reasons that they were able to pull it off weren't only because of their more, dare I say, scholarly approach to the blues and to the invention of blues rock, but it was because Eric Burdon was and remains a truly gifted vocalist. He wasn't a shouter per se, he wasn't a talker per se. He could do those things, but when he needed to carry a tune based on the strength of his pipes, that is what he was known for. And that is what he did on most of the songs throughout his career, whether it was The Animals, the second incarnation as Eric Burdon in The Animals, his solo stuff in the 70s, 80s, and beyond, his great collaboration with Brian Auger, the great organist in the 90s. He's someone who really stands and falls on a great God-given voice and a really interesting technique with it. And that's why I've always considered the Animals different than many of their so-called peers. They were more soulful, say that three times false. They were more groovy. They were, dare I say, more authentic than a lot of the bands that came out at the time. And because of that, I think they have an appeal that can maybe transcend the era a lot more than the others. Because great talent, whether being a great guitar player, great pianist, great drummer, great vocalist, that is something that every generation will be able to appreciate. Eric Burdon has that. And it's one of the reasons that he is one of the ultimate rock singers, one of the ultimate blues rock singers, one of the ultimate traditional blues singers. And no matter what genre he was in, whether the more sort of jazz Latin fusion of War, the psychedelic rock of the Eric Burdon and the Animals era, or the traditional blues rock of the original Animals, Eric Burdon could and can do it all. Truly one of the finest of all time, and a credit to his era and to this. As always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.